If you think that Xayah and Chogath are the two only comps that you can play in this meta, then I want to show you 5 underrated comps that I play or I see played many times in challenger lobbies to open your mind a little bit about the meta, because it is much more open than you might think. The idea behind this comp is to help you consider more choices which are viable and extremely strong, but only if you know them and know how to play them. Let's get started. To show you these 5 comps, I'm going to use Tacter, which is the sponsor of my channel. In Tacter, with the link in the description, you will be able to access this guide that I wrote myself. It's completely free, don't worry about that. You can just go there and check it whenever you want, if you prefer this rather than the video version. So let's start right away with Misfortune Reroll. It's actually one of my favorites. I love this comp, it's so much fun to play, and also it's really not contested unless for Nyla, but pretty much everything else is not contested. What I really like about this comp is the amount of burst damage you have at the beginning of the fight and how you can melt frontline in like 2 seconds. It's even worse than Xayah, I wanna say. It's not as strong as how it used to be at the beginning of the set 9.5, but it's still very strong with the last buffs on Beach Water. I really like to play this comp, however, only if I'm pretty sure and guaranteed to have +1 Beach Water, or if I have Raising Infamy as stage 2-1, because this one is just broken. It gives you so much gold, so much Econ, and it's so easy to find 3-star units with that much gold. What really matters in this comp is that you find Misfortune 3 at level 7 with Nautilus 3. Obviously, you want to build Nyla next to it as well, because she's going to be a great side carry and she will help cleaning all the targets you can't reach initially with Misfortune. And then ideally you want to have 7 Beach Water as well, and this is why I feel like having +1 Beach Water makes your comp much stronger sooner, and also you're not dependent on whether you find Gangplank or not in order to have your late game power spike. But let's say you can still win with this without the +1 Beach Water. I would just say that it's usually harder. The next comp you want to play is Neeko Bastion. I'm pretty sure you heard about it, but the thing is, I think most people like to play with Soraka reroll as well and 4 invokers. But I think that most of the time it's just better to have Silco instead, because Silco will help you have much more damage than Soraka thanks to the Morello, but also he will heal a lot and on multiple targets, not just Neeko. Also, Silco is not really contested right now, so it's also easy to find. That way you don't need to stay level 6 to roll for Soraka, you just push level 7, roll for Neeko, roll for Taric, roll for Shen, roll for Silco, roll for Aphelios, and I feel like this is just much better than just staying level 6 and roll for Soraka without being able to find Shen, Aphelios, Silco, which are excellent units you want to have at the end. You also have a variation where you can stuff Aphelios instead of Silco if you have AD stuff and you don't know what to do with it, but the most optimized version is with Silco. Another thing I really like about this comp is the items for Neeko. You can start your game building BT and Titan, and you still play flexible around challengers, Neeko, rogues, and some other stuff I don't have in mind right now. But for sure you can play multiple things with these items, so you're not forced to play Neeko just because you slam BT Titan. You can play whatever you want based on what you find, and that way you have a much flexible gameplay, and that way you are less likely to not hit because you have many options. The next comp that I see, and I actually lost against it, I was kinda sad, but anyway, the next comp I think is rising in popularity is Twisted Fate Multicaster. So I give you 2 versions because you will see like you have 2 versions here. The first version I think is the most optimized, is where you can have a lot of units who can bump like Nautilus and Set to help Talia, who is going to be your secondary carry next to Twisted Fate, to deal a good amount of damage. But the reality is that Set is kinda contested, honestly. The boss is one of the best Omen dispatch, and also like all the Ionia players will want to have Set, Ash Reroll wants to have Set 3, so I feel like sometimes it's just too hard to hit this comp. This is why the second version right now might be better, just because it's easier to hit, not because it's stronger overall. So the way you want to play this comp obviously is to reroll at level 6 for Twisted Fate 3, but since you're level 6 you want to reroll for other units as well. Talia is one of them. We talked about it, how important she is to help you have more damage and finish fights in the late game, but you want also to have a 3-star frontline, because if you don't have a good frontline your comp doesn't work at all. And in this case, you want to have Galio 3 and Swain 3. With Galio 3, you want to make sure to have only 2 items because you want to have the Radiant Redemption on him, and Swain 3 because since you are at it, why not have Swain 3, right? That way you can also add 2 strategists, Jarvan and Misfortune, and this way you have even more tankiness and damage on your backline. And this comp is actually quite nice. Some people like to force this comp by picking Twisted Fate as a legend, so they can play Twisted Fate. It's kind of weird, but I advise you not necessarily to force this comp because if you don't hit quite early, if you don't manage to stabilize with 2-star unit at stage 3-2, you will simply finish 8th. So this comp is kind of risky, but honestly, it can cap quite high. And like I told you, I already lost against this comp many times. The next comp you want to play is Kayle Reroll. You probably heard about it, and again, I don't think it's a comp that's unknown, but I think it's a comp that a lot of people are sleeping on. At least I do, until I lost many times against it. So the way you want to play it, obviously, is kind of straightforward. It's kind of easy like Chogath, but this time you play Kayle. However, you cannot force this comp just because you have one Kayle. You can play this comp only if you have a couple of Kayles and you're sure you can build a Ginzu quite fast because this is one of the most important items. Then after you want to reroll level 4 and level 5 for 3-star Poppy, 3-star Kayle, and then after you want to push the Demacia trait because it's important to have more defense and more items. So you have a Radiant item on Poppy because she's your 3-star, so she needs to have a Radiant item. Radiant item on Kayle, it's important of course, she's your main carry. And Radiant item on Queen because she's going to be your secondary carry. And then after you just want to have a bunch of NPCs who are here to just give you more stats basically. It's also a comp I'm willing to force if I have +1 Demacia or if I have Pretusite Shackles because these 2 augments are really good for this comp. That way you can remove that useless Galio and have +1 Demacia on Mordekaiser for instance, and then after you can have a huge Porous Pack at level 7, level 8, and this Porous Pack will help you reach level 9, which is important of course to have the last upgrade on Kayle. And finally the last comp I really like to play, but I think it's also a little bit risky. This one is actually the riskiest of all of them because I feel like too many people are still playing Chogath and are still playing Kayle, so it makes Rek'Sai and Queen harder to find. But for sure, if you have Rek'Sai 3, if you have Queen 3, you will see how much work they deal. Like Rek'Sai is a real monster. They added a huge buff on her and now she's just unstoppable when you have a 3-star Rek'Sai. Unless when she's randomly getting kicked out by Cassette, that happened to me and I was kind of sad. But anyway, she is extremely deadly. So the best variation for this comp, if you don't have any emblems, is to have 4 Breezers and 4 Slayers. I think the Breezers are too important because Rek'Sai needs to take damage so she can fill up her mana faster, and so also she can tank a little bit for your team, so that way she can attack faster with her spell and execute more targets. So this is why it's extremely important that she's at least tanky a little bit with 4 Breezers and 1 Sterak and 1 Titan and 1 BT. With this kind of stuff, she cannot get burst down unless you position her very badly in front of, I don't know, 3-star Xayah or something like this, obviously. And that's it for these 5 underrated comps. If you wanted to have access to these comps before I make this video, you can join my private Discord. Here I share everything I know before I make any videos about it. This way you can abuse with the strongest comp before the meta catches up and earn tons of LP. So if you want to have access to this private Discord, you have the link in the description. You need to be subscribing to this channel with a tier 2 at least to have access to everything I do. And until the next video, happy climbing and see you at the top of the ladder.